What does the past year look like for us? Our successes, our failures. How can God use that as we move into the new year, as we, cross this boundary of 2025 into 2026? What can we do to build off of remembering how God has been faithful in the past year? And what might God be calling us to in the new year that we don't quite see yet?
Welcome to the For Lake Norman podcast. Whether you're somebody who is excited about the new year and already making plans, or you're someone who's anxious heading into the new year, this podcast is for you. Today we're going to be using wisdom from the book of Joshua in the Bible to talk about ways we can approach heading into a new year and turning the page from 2025 to 2026. So you're not going to want to miss this conversation. But before we get started, can I ask you for one small favor? If you're watching on YouTube or wherever else you listen to podcasts and haven't subscribed yet, take a second and click that button. When you subscribe or follow, you help us to share meaningful stories, resources, and conversations with more listeners searching for healing, connection, and purpose. Thanks for being a part of what God's doing here. Now let's tune in to today's episode.
Well, the new year is rapidly approaching.
It is.
And I'm here with Anson Hamberry, our lead pastor, and Evan Nestor, our student pastor. My name's Tucker. I'm the community pastor here at the church. And we're a church at Lake Norman Baptist that exists to bring healing, connection, and purpose to people all around Lake Norman through the love of Jesus. And we say this every week, but we hope that this podcast is an extension of that and a way we can do that. So we actually have a really fun conversation in store for you today in regards to the new year rapidly approaching. And Evan got the honorary...
I got the call up.
The Sunday that all student pastors preach.
The call up.
You got called from the bullpen.
The third string. That's right. The third string, fourth string, whatever I am on the depth chart. I'm happy. I'm
We
happy.
don't have a depth chart.
We don't, but I'm happy to,
You
take
do
the
a great
reins.
job,
and
Evan.
it's
Great
fun.
job.
I love doing it.
Yeah.
When you speak to middle and high schoolers for a living, getting to kind of go a little even deeper.
Yeah.
With the moms and dads is always a joy. So
Nice.
But you still bring the middle and high schooler
I do.
energy to the stage.
I
which
do.
is a great change of pace.
It can
for
be a
us.
curse or a blessing. It
I
depends
think
on
it's
who's
fantastic.
who's in the crowd, I guess.
Mhm.
And everybody's gonna have, that Sunday, everybody's so stuffed from eating so much food and celebrating with family.
So they're going to be asleep.
So your energy is exactly what they needed in that moment.
Uh-huh.
So thank you for bringing it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I love doing it. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. I like waking people up.
Yeah.
So
So how about you wake us up here on the podcast and you tee up for us what we're going to be talking about today?
well, I think we always joke about this week in between Christmas and New Year's, right? Like it's this no man's land. You don't know what day it is.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about you've got this, like you're in a food coma,
Mhm.
the holiday ham, the sugar cookies, like,
Mhm.
I mean, you are struggling,
Mhm.
maybe you had the meat sweats the other night. I don't know, and but it's like we're balancing this and like we're traveling and we're with families, but also we're in this weird place where we're thinking about 2026, we're thinking about this new year. And a lot of times I think Christmas comes around and then we're like, oh yeah, like what's the new year going to look like for me? And a lot of times people quickly try to piece together maybe some New Year's resolutions. If you're into that, I know like there's this, a lot of times you talk to people and they're like, I don't do New Year's resolutions, but a lot of people do.
Mhm.
And, I recognize that you can make a decision to better yourself at any point in time, right? But I think it's a lot harder to wake up on a random Tuesday and say, I'm not drinking soda anymore.
Yeah.
But New Year is a nice kind of cutoff for anybody. You don't
Sure.
have to, you don't even have to be a
Yeah.
Christian. You can just say, this is when I want to start bettering myself. I want to read the Bible in a year, I want to be more intentional about reaching out to people, once a week, whatever it is, it's like this natural line for us. But we also spend, so we try to force this in this week where we're thinking about the new year, but we're reflecting on the past year, right?
Mhm.
I think about people who have experienced loss this year, and they're kind of grieving going into a new year without their loved one. Or maybe there's been some type of success in your life, whether it's um, career wise, or maybe you've had your faith has grown really well over this past year. And I think that's a lot of what we see in this week, this no man's land,
Mhm.
um, and trying to like prepare ourselves for the new year. And this goes really well with the scripture that we talked about on Sunday in Joshua 3. Um, except the story of Joshua 3 is a lot longer than a week. It's a
Yes.
lot longer than a year.
Yeah.
Joshua 3 starts all the way in Genesis 12,
Mhm.
really, some 600 years. Six-
Yeah.
you know, um, but, in that, I think, we have a glimpse of what we do in our own lives, which is, um, we wait for the Lord, uh, we anticipate, we remember, we prepare.
Mhm.
That's a lot of what we're doing
Yeah.
in the new year,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm. So you said kind of 4 things there: waiting on the Lord, anticipating what's to come, remembering what was the 4th?
And preparing.
And preparing.
That's
That's
right.
what it was.
A lot of
So,
words.
yeah. So preparing, remembering, anticipating,
Waiting.
waiting.
Yeah.
I think that's a good framework for us when we in this in between week when we're thinking about, yeah, this year's coming to a close, and yeah, maybe we're those people that's like, oh, Year's resolutions are overrated because nobody ever sticks to it, and I get that crowd that says that, because the reality is by the time February rolls around, most people aren't doing those things anymore.
Yeah. The odds are not in your favor.
The odds are not in your
Yeah.
favor, but I think the reason that even exists is because this is a natural time in the calendar where people, it's a break.
Yeah.
And breaks give you time
Yeah.
to do all the things you just talked about.
Totally.
What does it look like in y'all's life to wait on the Lord? Maybe not, specifically at the end of the year, but just in general. What are some practical ways that you guys throughout your lives have waited on the Lord in different seasons?
Mm. You got one that comes to mind, Evan?
Well, I mean, my immediate one is, I've shared this, a few years ago. I had a painful experience and shifted away from a church, and I really did not know what my future looked like. There was a moment where I wasn't going to work for the church anymore, and I've shared this in other podcasts. I was just going to be a mailman, um, and you kind of just wait and see. I didn't know, I've got a wife that's 4 months pregnant, and I'm like, it's all right, I gotta get like a quick wait. Come on, God, like I gotta do something here. But I really just waited for God to open a door for me because I had no choice. I mean, no choice in that moment but to wait
Mhm.
and see what happened. And it was a terrifying week, and it's only a week. In this story, Israel waits 600 years to receive God's promise. But that's just an immediate situation, I think, of waiting for God to open a new door for me. And I know some stories, unfortunately, are not
Mhm.
that quick.
So in
Yeah.
that week though, what did that look like? Like what does it look like
It,
to wait on the Lord?
I was scared. Um, I really thought like I had no idea how I was going to provide for my family.
Mm.
Um, and so the word fear comes to my mind first,
Mhm.
because you don't know what your next step looks like. But then that fear kind of turned into excited anticipation. My fear turned to trust because I knew God was not going to leave us out to dry. And it became more of a dreaming season, in that quick week. Like, what could happen? How
Mhm.
could God use this? And how is God going to use this?
Mhm.
So that's how it quickly looked
Yeah.
for me.
Okay.
Yeah, when I've gone through similar moments like that, especially job related,
Yeah.
when there is a fearful element to it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I mean, I've I've prayed harder and more frequently in those seasons than anywhere else. Um, and I think back as I reflect on when those experiences come, I think, and if I only had that sense of urgency and
Mm.
spiritual dependence on God in normal life,
Yeah.
that probably would
Proactive.
that
Yeah.
probably would enrich my relationship with God a whole lot more
Yeah.
Yeah.
than seasons that are not like that. But I think waiting shows up in a lot of different ways. For me and my family, most recently, we've got, so our 4 older kids are all sort of moving through that transition into adulthood. So I got a 21-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 18-year-old, and a 16-year-old that are all kind of crossing that threshold within a 5-year period. And, there's certain milestones that come with that, that are, increasing independence, taking on more responsibility for paying for your car insurance and then your car itself and then all sorts of different things. I was just having a conversation today with my daughter who's now an entrepreneur and she's off on her own. But sort of as we approach this season, you start to see some of these things off in the horizon, and they're coming. And both my wife and I, as parents, and our kids, you see what's coming, and you start to get excited about it and anticipate it. But sometimes it feels like they can be slow in coming, and you wait. You do the right thing for today, because you can't race. You can't speed the clock up. There's a lot of things that can't be put in a microwave, and when you're really excited about something off in the horizon, all you can do is wait.
Well, and I think it pours well into the preparation of it all, right? We just got through the season of Advent, which is like a season of waiting and preparing for the arrival of Jesus. And I think the Lord wants to prepare us in the waiting.
Yeah.
Like that's I think the next natural. And you see that with the story of crossing the Jordan River, right? The priests, Levitical priests, they all run through the Israeli camp saying, like, prepare yourselves, like God is about to do something amazing here. And I think that's beautiful because like why did it take 600 years for Israel to really get into the promised land? Well, a lot of it came from ancestral failures, right? Idolatry, false worship, not really trusting God to come through. And that cost them years and years and years. And it had to get to a point to where a generation really did believe God was going to do this. And I think it took time to prepare the hearts of the people for this big move, because what was to come it took faithful people, right? It took people willing to take on the walls of Jericho and these other inhabitants of the promised land. Their hearts weren't ready. And I think in the seasons of waiting, the Lord prepares us for what's to come, because maybe we're not spiritually mature to handle what's next. And you see that with like the story of Joseph, right? I mean, he waited such a long time to really to really get to where God needed him to be. But was that young boy, what if that young boy had had immediately been thrust into Egypt?
Yeah.
He would have not been ready.
Yeah.
So we don't know what's to come, but I think the Lord likes to use these seasons of waiting to prepare us for what is coming. And you may not see that in the moment.
Yeah.
That's
kind of where I was going. So God is doing the preparing through the time that is passing.
Yeah.
And from our end, it's kind of like when you're a little kid and you're waiting for Christmas to come. It's just the time has to pass.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think for me, it's helpful to be reminded that it's okay if things aren't coming as quickly as I would like for them to come. Because sometimes the waiting is just living through the time that's passing.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite quotes on that is not a Bible quote or even a Christian quote, but James Taylor, one of my favorite James Taylor lines.
Born and raised in North Carolina. I'm just going to throw
Yeah, there you
that
go.
out there.
Carolina. Well, when we were relocating from Illinois to North Carolina, all the time I was thinking Carolina on my mind.
Yeah, that's right.
In my mind, I've gone to Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am still. But no, he said, the secret of life is enjoying the passing of time.
Mm.
And I thought, man, there's a lot of wisdom in that perspective. And, to flip it into biblical terms, there's so much of the Bible where we're called to wait.
Yeah.
And it's through the passing of time, whether it's maturing, right?
Yeah.
Just like you talked about. Or there's just something in it, right? When we live through the passing of time and we can wait well, I think that's one of the great life lessons. And if we can learn to do that, and I struggle with that. I mean, I'm a very sort of future-oriented person. I'm always wanting to get to the next thing, and I'm impatient for it to come.
You're
and
really good at the anticipation.
Oh, yeah. So I'm not good at enjoying the passing of time.
Yeah.
But it helps when I can catch myself in that and go, it's okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some of this is just time that needs to pass.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody actually reminded me of that. They put it in a way that I hadn't heard it before. I mean, just within the last few months. And it was very much that idea of, hey, this is just something. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing's right or wrong or, broken. It's just, this is a season of time that just needs to pass.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can take some of the pressure off, because I think I create a lot of pressure for myself, then the waiting becomes something that can take on a purpose and can be more enjoyable.
Yeah. It's that invitation from the Psalms, right? Be still and know that I am God.
Yeah.
I think when we're in seasons where we're forced to wait on something, that's what God's trying to get us to do, is just be still and spend time in his presence.
And to be a little more heavy and serious, because we're using, so even navigating a job can feel a little bit less serious when I think about kind of what our family's been going through. My mom, we had a little bit of a cancer scare with my mom these past few weeks. And I haven't even shared that with you guys just because I've been waiting for it to play out. But my mom a couple months ago had some lumps pop up, and it has been like a terrifying just waiting, just anxiety ridden. But by the grace of God, she found out this past week that there was nothing. Everything's good. We do have a history of like breast cancer in our family, so that added to it. But like there are like people are waiting with heavy hearts, things that are much more serious. And what is the Lord doing in those moments? I think is a big question that people are navigating. Waiting for the answers from a doctor, or waiting for results. I think, Anson, I think part of it is we just have to trust the Lord, right? Be still and wait. Know that I am God. And then once the outcome reaches, once we maybe receive an answer or we grow in the wisdom of the experience that we're navigating, I think it's easier to bring us to the next idea of looking back and remembering, and this is going to tie in together. So for me, and you see, like, this is such a big emphasis throughout the Bible, not just the Old Testament, but this idea of remembering, and I think people do, hey, let's flip this on its head a little bit. Let's talk about your years. Okay. What do you remember? What's something you remember that was impactful or enjoyable from your past year? Okay.
From this calendar year?
Yeah.
Oh, me and my wife bought our first house.
2025, right?
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
That was a big milestone.
Yeah. And you had to think about it, right?
Yeah.
You have to think about what this last year looked like for you.
Yeah, it's easy. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I feel like this year's gone by faster than any I remember in recent history. Like, it feels like because I was thinking about it at a friend's house. They had a pool put in this year, and they started construction on it in January. and we're already in December, like around the time that they were talking about
Mhm.
putting the pool in last year, and it felt like it just went by
Yeah.
in a flash.
Yeah.
And it's just, man, it flew by. I don't know if y'all feel that,
Oh,
but
I mean,
I definitely
I
do.
mean,
So
not,
it is hard. It's hard
Yeah.
to remember all that's happened.
yeah.
And they just get faster and faster.
Yep.
That's what I hear.
It's like a very old thing to say, but yeah, it's true.
Well,
It
is.
happens.
I mean, seeing,
Yeah.
I remember a year ago when Bodie was 1, I sent a picture of our preschool performance to Courtney and I said, Bodie's going to be up there next year. Well, guess what? It's already happened and it's done. And Bodie
it
was
was
up there, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, what about you? You've
Yeah.
got,
So mine's more recent. So my mind first goes to my son's graduation trip that we took to Texas.
yeah,
It was our Texas barbecue tour. Talked about it a few weeks ago on the podcast, but that was a big moment for 2025. And we try to have these sort of milestone experiences with our kids when they graduate.
Yeah.
So, 5 days of Texas brisket was not a bad thing. We'll
No.
remember that from 2025 for forever.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think like, I mean, you just forget your year, just your year, right? So easily. I mean, when I was preparing for this sermon, I was like, oh yeah, I completely forgot that the Pope died, you know, and that like,
Yeah.
that's a major moment in history. And we got a new Pope and not just a normal Pope, the first American
American
Pope,
Pope.
you know, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, my point being, it's just we're just such forgetful people. And I think there's a reason we see all throughout Scripture, God makes a point for Israel and his people to remember what he's done. And that takes up a sizable part of the crossing narrative is remembering, looking back, you know? So part of the narrative, right? God calls on Joshua to bring out 12 men from the tribes of Israel to collect stones as they cross the Jordan to create an altar. And the scripture says, like, so when your children ask, why is this here? Like, so this isn't just like for you, this is for generations to come following you. This is what I've done in your life. The scripture specifically says they put the rocks on their shoulders. I mean, like, these are not pebbles.
Yeah.
You know, like they are building almost like a building, you know, to remember what God has done. And I think I always call them anchor points in student ministry. I always tell my students, throughout your young life, you will have experiences that will anchor you in your faith when life gets hard. I think about, do you remember Flyleaf, the Christian, almost like a all girl kind of like not screamo, but like, I don't know. Anyways,
a band.
Band. And I will never forget going to one of their concerts. And it was there that I first heard 2 Peter 2:9. And that like changed my life. For you, our chosen generation, right? And it really laid the foundation for my faith. And that's a point I always go back to in my life, and God revealing something to me.
Girl punk rock screamo Christian band concert.
Flyleaf, look them up. I don't know if they're even still a band, but I just remember.
I was going to leave that alone, Tucker, but
I just had to point
hey,
that out.
it may have been like Winter Jam. It's
God works in mysterious ways.
It was probably Winter Jam, you know, like there were probably a bunch of, and they're the ones that read it. Okay, listen, hey, I don't like this tone that I'm getting right now from you two. Okay.
Yeah.
By the grace of God, I'm here today, maybe because of Flyleaf.
Maybe because of Flyleaf.
All right. So, but right, you know, we have experiences throughout the year and we reflect on them this time of year. Some of them are great and exciting, like buying a new house. You know, the birth of Bodie 2 years ago, right? Just things that we're so excited about. But then we also have painful moments, right? I think, you know, just doing surviving the holidays, people who have experienced loss this year and are hurting, and the holidays don't look the same to them. But I think God wants us to look back on our year so we can create anchor points in our lives to really anchor our faith when things are good and when things are bad. So like for the story of Israel, it's funny, the narrative says, don't get close to the ark. Now, as it goes across the Jordan, stay back from the ark. Why do you think it says that?
Because it's holy?
Right. Okay. So that's like the initial thought is any other time you see the ark really discussed, it's like if you go near it, you die,
Mhm.
in this
Indiana Jones, of
right,
course, yeah.
exactly. Which we need to have a conversation about Raiders of the Ark because I saw this theory the other day that it was like Raiders of the Ark would still have ended the way it did end, even if Indiana Jones wasn't involved. And I was like, whoa,
Interesting.
because they're still going to open the ark.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm like, oh, anyways, right? That is your thought.
Yeah.
Raiders
The
of the
ark,
Lost Ark.
you're dead,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because of the glory of God. Not in this narrative, though.
Mm.
In this story, it says, stay back from the ark so you can see where it is going. So you can watch how God moves.
Mhm.
Not because it's super holy, but just so you can see what God is doing and where God is going. And the scripture says, because you've never been here before, you've never stepped foot on where you're going now, and you need to be able to see how God moves. So I think this invitation to look back and remember and say, in the moment, if we're too close to something, it's hard to really see what God's doing.
Mhm.
But when we look back and we've gotten through a particular situation, I think it's a lot easier to see, oh, yeah, this is how God showed up in my life. You
I
know?
think that's a good, like, even you point out how we forget things even in the past year
Yeah.
as easily as we do. I think that's a good analogy for sort of the bigger picture of it's easy to forget the bigger things in our lives and what God is doing. One of the things that we do every New Year's Eve, and it's something that my wife Dina started years ago when the kids were really small, is throughout the year we keep a memory jar. So on one of the pieces of furniture in our house, there's this glass bowl with a stack of little blank pieces of paper next to it and a jar of pens. And all through the year, she reminds us, and to her credit, she does most of them. Thank you, Dina, for doing that. But we'll write down things that we're likely to forget.
Yeah.
And I think it came from this recognition that she had years ago. If we don't intentionally mark down the things that we want to remember, then we're probably going to forget them.
Yeah.
And so
That's a
every
really
year
cool tradition.
so throughout the year they get added in. So if we go to a concert, we'll stick the ticket stub in there and write who went to the concert and anything that, noteworthy about the night or whatever. So it all kind of accumulates in this jar, and we'll spend a few hours, it turns out to be, on New Year's with like a charcuterie board and, appetizers and things like that. Now, the older the kids get, the harder this is getting. So we're trying to work hard to try to find a moment for it. But that used to be our New Year's Eve ritual. But it was precisely for that reason. And I mean, 75% of the memories that we'll pull out of the jar, and we'll just like pass them around, and each family member will stick their hand under the jar and pull it out. 3 out of 4 were like, I forgot about that.
Yep.
I forgot about that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, just the power of having your memory jogged and how quickly we forget about things.
Yeah.
And I think, there's someone very close to me who this time of year, they get super anxious because of what, how God tells Israel, you've never been here before. You don't know what's about that. That's their mindset going into a new year. They're like, well, I don't know what's about to happen in the new year. And that, stirs up anxiety in me. And I think that practice of remembering and looking back and seeing like, well, here's all the ways that God has been faithful through good times and really difficult, challenging times. It can give you that faith you need to trust God moving into
Forward.
the new year.
Yeah.
Even though there's a lot of unknowns and even though there may be things that are up in the air still, and maybe you're still waiting on some things, going into the new year, the more you can reflect and look back, um, it gives you the trust you need
Exactly.
to move forward.
Exactly.
And so I think, that tradition's awesome. I think things like
it's been
that,
great.
I think things like just making journaling a practice, whether you do
Yeah.
it at the end of the year or you do it throughout the year, those things can be helpful as far as looking back to go forward.
Yeah.
Devices to help us remember.
Yeah.
So I
Because
just
we need them.
Yeah, I just had lunch with Sutton Porter, and we were talking about the end of the year, and he said that every year at the end of the year, him and Emily sit down and they journal out their year to kind of reflect on the year that they had.
Yeah.
And just like you, he he acknowledged that this was Emily's.
She's driving it.
Yeah, so I
Good job,
think,
Emily.
what would we be without our wives
Right.
and the women in our life who do? Because I think traditionally men are more inclined to forget. I
know I am.
Maybe that's a
Yeah.
reckless stereotype. I apologize, but I think it's. I realized today that I bought Courtney a Christmas present that her mom bought, and she told me, Evan, you were sitting there next to me when I told my mom to buy that. And I'm like, oh, well, so anyways. But even in the New Testament, right? And Jesus installing the value, like, of the Eucharist, and every time you do this, do it in remembrance of me.
Yeah.
Like,
Otherwise known as the Lord's
Supper, right? Like, so even Jesus instituted one of the most foundational elements of the Christian faith centered around remembering who Jesus is and why we're doing this. And I mean, Israel was so forgetful even after witnessing the work of God. And I think in a lot of ways we are individual Israels, and I think we are forgetful people. So yeah, instituting valuable ways to look back on your year and see how God has moved in your life, what he's done, how he's been there in the good and the bad, for things that we may not see in the moment. But in looking back with maybe without emotion or with fresh eyes, are able to see what God has done in our lives.
Yeah. And it occurs to me, you're talking about these 4 different things: waiting, remembering, anticipating, preparing. In the waiting, I think one of the things that frustrates me is I want to get to the thing that I'm anticipating.
Yep.
Right. So all my thoughts and energy and focus are on kind of the anticipation direction, but there's nothing I can do about. Sometimes there are some things, but like we said earlier, some things just require the passing of time. But as we're talking about remembering, it occurs to me, one way to pass the time in the waiting, a great way to pass the time would be remembering, because we can do that.
Yeah.
We can spend time in the waiting, remembering the good things that are worth remembering, that otherwise we might forget.
Yeah.
And I think, I want to go back to the concept of like anticipating and preparing, because we've talked a lot about looking back and what you do when you're waiting. But I do think there is a sense, and this time of year is the best time as ever to do it, to take an inventory of like, all right, here's some things I did well this year, here's some things I didn't do so well, and here's some ways I want to improve in the new year. And the reason 95% of New Year's resolutions fail is because people don't have a plan.
Yeah.
And so they just say, I would like to do this in the new year. I would love to go to the gym more. And it's vague.
Yeah.
And it's
I
like,
really should.
I need to do it, or I need to eat better. And it's like, okay, well, what does that look like?
How are you
What
going to
does
do
it
that?
mean to eat better for you?
Yeah.
And, so I think that there is a really practical sense of, if you want to prepare well for what's to come, you got to come up with a plan. And there's a acronym that I've always found helpful as far as setting goals is concerned. It's SMART goals. So they're specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're relevant, and they're time oriented. And so, you can, I'll just give a personal one. I've already been thinking about, in the new year, what I would like to do. Football season, and just being completely honest, is always a time I put on some weight, just because, I'm doing a lot of social things, hanging out with people, eating, tailgate food. And this season, like fall into winter and the holidays, just get so busy that going to the gym is just like up and down.
Yeah.
So, and I'm a person where if I give myself an inch, I'm going to take a yard. So when I get to the new year, I'm like, all right, I'm going to be really strict. I'm going to come up with like a strict plan. So I've given myself 90 days where I'm going to eat only, and you guys can hold me accountable for this. So this will be good. And everyone else. So we're just going to eat meat, fish, fruit, and veggies, and go to the gym.
No carbs,
and go to the gym at least 3 times a week.
Hey,
so,
leave a post in the comments if you're going to be holding Tucker accountable to all this.
I would love it. Please, I'll invite it.
What do you do when you go to the gym?
Lift weights. Yeah.
Whoa,
Yeah,
we're
lift
getting
weights.
really
I mean, you got to
specific.
do something when you
Yeah.
get there.
I have
Just going.
Yeah, I have
I'm
a
gonna
program.
go and walk around.
A program that I do. I've already had it
Tucker
picked
was
out.
here.
Yeah.
He took his selfie and left.
Yeah. But I say all that to say, unless you take the time to think about all those
Yeah.
details, like, okay, well, I need to go on a
Yeah.
diet. What kind of diet do I want to do? And what's incredible is I actually had ChatGPT be a dietitian for me,
Oh
and it
yeah.
came up with like grocery list, go-to meals I can do. I mean, the resources we have now to do all this is
Yeah.
incredible for
Yeah,
free.
for sure.
Yeah.
But that's a real way you can prepare. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, so I recognized I've been a little unhealthy towards the end of this year.
Mhm.
I would like to be healthier in the new year. Here's how I'm going to do it. And it's time oriented, it's specific, it's
Yeah.
measurable. At the end of it, I'll be able to say, or I'm going to weigh myself often throughout it and
Yeah.
be like, okay, did I do what I set
All
out
right.
to do? So
90 days.
I think that's a helpful framework and a practical thing to consider if you are wanting to embark on
Yeah.
some New Year's resolutions.
Good. Good for you.
I'm going to try, and you guys are going to hold me accountable.
You're further along than I am, but
But maybe you just haven't taken the time.
I have
to
not.
prepare
I
yet.
have not. And I think that plays well into our final point, which is that anticipation, right? Uh, and that's, I mean, like Israel hangs out 3 days on the river banks of the Jordan. 3 days. And like this is the moment 600 years in the making.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Israel, I mean, they really can't even see the other side
Mhm.
of the bank because they say, flood stage in the Bible, probably about a mile long. That's about from this church up to the interstate for those that know the area, right?
Mhm.
That's about a mile long. Um, but they've made such a big deal about this moment. Joshua has said, hey, the moment you see the ark move, your feet get to shuffling. So they're anticipating God to do something amazing
Mhm.
in these days. And I think that's what we all do, right? We know God. We trust God. We anticipate God to come through because of our faith. A lot of times it does not look like what we hoped it would look like.
Mhm.
Um, but I think in preparing, I think setting ourselves up for success, I think we anticipate God to do some great things in our lives in the coming year.
Mhm.
Things we're excited about, but also anxious.
Mhm.
Maybe we're uncertain about, right? I think Israel was uncertain in that moment. They didn't know. They were told we're going to walk to the waters and it's going to stop, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
But they had to wait to see this moment take place. So, um, I mean, you have to expect God to do something in
Yeah.
your life.
Yeah. It's the anticipation part.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's a good word because this year may have been horrible for you. This year may have sucked, but God often works even through the hardest years we've had to bring about something really good. And you
Mhm.
brought up the story of Joseph. That's what he said. What you intended for evil, God intended for good.
Yeah.
And um, I think that's such a good word and a great place for us to close this conversation is, man, be ready for what God's going to do in your life in the new year and in our lives in our church. And we would love to be a part of that journey of what God's going to do in your life. So if you're looking for a community to share all of what we're talking
Mhm.
about with, we would love to have you come be a part of our church in the new year. It's a great time to jump in and try out a church. So the link to our website's in the description. Find us there. Thank you for tuning in and listening, and we hope you have the happiest of New Year's and get off to a great start. And we'll see you next week.